Good morning, Bob. How are you this morning?
Oh, fine. Thanks very much, Chris. And I say a budget to look forward to, and spring is in the air, and we seem to have some firm plans for the future for once. So I think it's something everyone can start planning and looking forward to and getting down to work. Yes?
I hope so. But one topic we want to discuss today is about schools and a return to schools.
Yes, indeed, Chris. And I was sort of really what brought this topic to a head was last week. We had a Zoom Royal Academy of Culinary Arts meeting, and we've got some great people represented, all sectors there, from Bill Toner and Alistair Story for contract caterers, and Richard Shepherd, Brian Turner, John Williams from what I term the chef craft restaurant sector, and people like Harry Murray and Jeremy Goring and Paul Jackson from Claridge's. So a great spread, and Kate Nichols from the UK Hospitality has now joined, and of course your good self. So a great list of people right across the sector. And the subject that really came up for sort of really long discussion was really built on the discussions that you and I had 2 or 3 weeks ago when we were talking about localism and how important employing local people is going to be for the future of our industry. And the two areas we really focused on were a program they have called Adopt a School, and the second, of course, was the apprenticeship program. And I think all of us agreed that whilst government can assist and help us in this, and particularly getting good careers advice in schools, this really is something that industry has got to take up and, take up across the board, right across the sectors, and get the message out into schools, particularly to youngsters and to their parents, what a great career hospitality can offer. And particularly under current circumstances, we need local, good, bright young people to be working for us this summer, because we're not going to have people from overseas.
Well, let's start there, shall we? Because isn't the first place we've got to do is build trust? That's one thing that occurs to me with the local people and young people.
Well, I think we've got a long way to go, because this is not a new topic. It's something that we've thought about and talked about over, well, certainly my lifetime in this industry, and quite often we have not been, we've actually made things worse rather than better for ourselves by not treating young people well, not giving them the right experiences, not spending enough on training and developing young people, and just sort of depending on overseas labor because it was easier. So we've got to build or start building trust with both the young people and their parents and teachers that hospitality does have a lot of opportunities. It can be a great career, and it is a great career, and it's not just a job, and that we actually need these people, and we will look after them and give them the skills and the training that they need.
Well, I guess there's two starting places, aren't there? One is how hotels play a bigger role in communities.
Well, I think it actually adds to the message that I think you've been developing, or we've all been developing, and in fact maybe government now understands more how important hospitality is to local communities. It's sort of the glue that binds local activity together in terms of, one, it uses local suppliers, two, it provides a service and something for local people to get engaged with, whether it's going out for a meal or whatever, and three, it provides employment opportunities for local people as well. So it, right in the center of local communities, and for once, I think people have begun to understand how important the hospitality sector is to the local community to make it function.
Well, I think hospitality has become more important, hasn't it, to everybody's daily life?
Well, I think it's been not more important, but it's been more clearly understood. I mean, it's always been understood in what you might term prime tourism areas, be it Bournemouth, Brighton, the West Country, etc., where tourism, in fact, was the only industry, if I could put it in those terms. But I think it's now been more generally understood that it's not just in the tourism hotspots, but it's in almost every area of rural regional life, the role that hospitality has to play.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But I guess, not putting any pressure on the food service players particularly, a lot of it starts in the schools and how the food service piece works within schools, because that's what's going to inspire children as well, isn't it?
Well, there are two issues there. One, the food service companies are uniquely positioned because so many of them, whether it's Compass, Sodexo, Aramark, Elior, CH&Co, Baxter Story, etc., all have large contracts, many contracts in that sector, so they have the links with schools already. And secondly, we have made progress about getting food on the school's agenda so that youngsters do understand a little bit more about the role that healthy eating, good food has to play, so that they actually understand the sector a little more.
I mean, that's the whole point about Adopt a School, isn't it? Which has always been something focused on.
Well, that is why you say the Royal Academy has this ready-made program, Adopt a School. But what I want to see really is the Royal Academy has done some great work with the Adopt a School program, but Springboard has also done great work in this area, and it's about joining up the work of Springboard with the work of the Royal Academy and the work of great companies like Compass, which have had their own programs. Join them all together and get the leaders of all these major companies to really encourage their senior management to get behind these programs as well, so that everyone has a task of making contact with their local schools, getting involved, go and visit them and spread the message, because there's nothing better than an individual getting into the school to spread the message, and two, then offering opportunities to young people to come and visit, whether it's just on a day visit to your hotel, your restaurant, your food service operation, or provide work experience during the holidays. That is the best way to, as it were, persuade people to build that trust and to give people an opportunity.
Well, look, I agree with all that. I mean, as you know, the two challenges is, one, the narrative's got to change. We've got to get a better narrative, a louder narrative out to audiences, haven't we?
Well, we've got lots of great stories. It's getting people out there to deliver the stories in person and letting youngsters actually see for themselves what a great experience they can have. And I have to say, if I'm looking forward over the next 6-9 months, I do anticipate really strong business in the hospitality sector because of a strong staycation demand this year. So we are going to need these people. We are going to need young people like never before. So what a great opportunity. One, we need them, and two, we can give them a great opportunity, and that will help build up this trust issue, not just with the young people, but of course with their parents as well, because parents play a key role in advising and influencing these youngsters. And I keep focusing on it's about a career with a future, not just a short-term job.
No, I understand all that. But actually, the really exciting piece here about localism, isn't it, is also about how farms and local producers also interact with this.
Well, that is this link with the local community. I think we've all understood that, whether it's because of potential Brexit issues or whatever, local supply chains, one, are the most efficient, but two, they offer great fresh produce, and we have a lot of great fresh produce in this country, but it forms that link with the local farming community, local supplier bases, so you're binding together local supply sources with local people working in our industry, servicing local customers, and that is the best connection we can make, bringing all those people together to show the role that hospitality has in society and what a beneficial role it can play in developing local society.
Yeah, look, you know my view. We've never had a better opportunity. The question is, by force of circumstances, this is the opportunity, certainly the best opportunity in my lifetime. And I was thinking about this morning, and sometimes, you know, a very famous politician talked about events, dear boy, events. Sometimes it's totally outside what could have been foreseen and what could have been planned. A major event happens which gives you the opportunity to either change direction or reset your direction and really get it right. And to me, this is a once-in-a-generational opportunity for our sector to put its best foot forward. One, it needs it, but two, it's in the interests of society itself as well, and the two can work together. I agree. I suppose the acid question, isn't it? The acid test question is: from the dialogue you're having, do you believe companies are ready to take on that challenge?
Well, I must admit, at the RAC board meeting, I challenged Bill Toner, because Bill, you know, sort of as a leader in his field and a very strongly motivated, action-orientated person. I said to Bill, this is a task for you. You're of the next generation to me, to actually get out there, talk to your fellow chief executives of the big companies, liaise with Springboard and Alistair Story, who is the chairman there, and let's get the bigger companies led from the top to all be working together on this one key issue, because it's in their interests individually as companies, it's in the sector's interests, and quite frankly, it's in society and the country's interests. So let's repay some of the support that we've had from, quite frankly, the government and the Chancellor over the last year. And whatever the quibbles, we've actually had enormous support from the government over the last year through a whole range of programs, whether it's the reduction in VAT, which they heard, whether it's looking at rents, business rates, a whole range of things. So let's try and repay some of that support that the government has given us by saying, yes, this is something we can do for ourselves, our local communities, and our country as well.
And what kind of response did you get?
Very positive at this stage, I have to say, because I think the people around the table, they're the sort of people who they like to get involved, they are joiners, they are great people. The task, of course, is to spread the message, not just from those sort of 10, 15 key people, but right across the industry to get everyone involved and engaged. So that is really my plea to everyone who cares about the sector, to recognize this as a major initiative. Let's get involved and do your bit.
Now, one of the great things about the doctor school, for those who don't know, is that obviously that they go to inner city schools as well, where there's a real need to teach about food, isn't there? Some of the stats that come out of those plans.
Well, it is a little disappointing that not so much in the last 2 or 3 years, but we went through a long period where food was deemed to be irrelevant. It needn't be, they did away with what you might term domestic science or home economics. They closed down the kitchens in schools. School meal service was under pressure. It was almost as if food didn't matter. Whereas I think now, whether it's because of obesity issues, the health of the nation, or even trying to make sure that youngsters growing up understand the importance of a healthy diet and good food, I think the tide has turned. But, we are making up for 10, 15 years when, quite frankly, the tide was running against us.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a huge education piece, isn't it, that we've got to do?
It is a huge task, but just because it's a big task doesn't mean it's something that we shouldn't all try and tackle. And I think it is, to me, there is nothing more important than getting the brightest and the best of young people into our sector, because it won't just give us the benefit over the next 6-9 months. We'll have the benefit of this for the next 20, 30, 40 years. It'll be a generational thing that we can look back and hopefully say that was the time when we all took action and we actually built the trust with the wider community that hospitality can offer great careers for people, and that the hospitality sector itself will ultimately be the beneficiary of that.
Look, as you say, the forecast that we're going to have a bumper summer, which is encouraging, isn't it? Your view generally, though,
we'll only have a bumper summer if we have the right staff to deliver the service. Yes, I'm sure that there will be strong demand in the rural, regional areas, not so much the cities. There will be strong demand, but that means we've got to have staff to deliver the service. They've got to be well trained, etc., etc. And, I suspect that we're going to have a whole range of new people entering the industry to deliver this service that have perhaps not worked in the industry before. So we've got a lot of training to do, and if we are bringing in young people, we mustn't just throw them in at the deep end, as perhaps we've done in the past. They've got to be trained, they've got to be mentored, they've got to be looked after, because we want to make sure that this opportunity we don't mess up. We give them a great experience so they want to stay in the industry.
That's exactly what I was driving to, is that we've probably got 2 to 3 months to gear up for this.
Well, that is why I'm quite pleased the way the government plans are at the moment, because it has given us 2 or 3 months' notice, for want of a better word, that we are likely to be starting business, sometime during May to full business in June. So we've got 2 or 3 months to start gearing up, getting our workforces in place, giving the training that's required, and if we're looking for the summer break when it might really peak, we'll be bringing on extra people, local youngsters. That's when we can give them a really good experience, so that even if they're going back to school or college for another year or two, they can have had some great experience this summer and then pick hospitality as a first choice career when they leave school or leave college. So let's use this summer opportunity to give them that great experience.
It really is quite a unique opportunity, isn't it, for us?
It is, and it's unlikely to come again. So that is why I think it is up to industry and the leaders of industry to actually play their part. This is not about government doing something for you. I think government has done an awful lot for us. Now it's up to us. It's our business. It is our industry. Let's do something now which makes a difference for the next 30 years.
I agree on that. Now, obviously, we've got the budget today. Your hopes on the budget?
Well, I think a lot of has been trailed already. I think it's very significant that they're keeping the furlough until September. I think business rates need to be really reviewed, because we can't be paying business rates. I think the VAT reduction should be kept in place. But I think the big one we need to have a look at as well is some of the rent issues. I mean, particularly for the restaurant sector, which have been paying exorbitant high street rents. I really do think we need some action on how that can be looked at and how they can be specifically helped on rents or rent reviews. But other than that, I think that I'm in a fairly optimistic mood that most of the things that we've asked for to be reviewed, to be held, to be looked at, we have been listened to. So I think we've got to give positives there. And I I think we've got to thank people like Kate Nichol and Robin Hudson, some of the leaders who've been most vocal for, as it were, the arguments they've put forward and the way they've been listened to.
All fair. But one of the big challenges here is that the people who've been on furlough will have probably been on furlough for almost a year now. And actually,
they will have been. It is a year, indeed.
And potentially could be on furlough for 15, 16 months. And the one thing that struck me over the last week is the challenge of how you get them back up to speed.
Well, I always remember from my own experiences, even if I'd, in my youth, been away on holiday for 2 or 3 weeks and came back to work after a 3-week break, sometimes it almost seemed the world had changed while you'd been away. For young people, to have been a year away from work, that is why I think we almost have to treat returners as new starters and have a training program specifically geared. Don't just assume that, they've been away for a year and they can come back and resume work next week as if nothing has changed. We've got to have a whole induction program to get them back into work, to get them back into good habits, but also the fact that the current work programs are going to be different to in the past. We now do have to be COVID secure in our work practices, whether it's cleaning, whether it's servicing the customer, keeping our distance as best we can, taking precautions. I think we should treat all people coming back to work almost as new starters and have special induction programs accordingly.
But everything we're talking about today is going to require more investment, isn't it, to training and development again?
Maybe it should actually reflect how important people are to our industry. And I've always taken the view that a quick rule of thumb is I think at least 1% of payroll should be spent on training and investing in your staff. So, it's getting back to quite what I think should be what I term good practice. But what we want to see is that good practice right across the industry, not just by a few of what I term the great companies. We need to see this right across the industry, recognizing how important people are, putting the right levels of investment into the people, because it's the people, your staff, who will make the difference this year and hopefully make it a more successful year for all our industry.
You've always been one of the great advocates for young talent, Bob. What brought that along?
I've always taken the view that if you have the right attitude and you enjoy what I term, I think for this sector, you need to be able to feel comfortable with people, whether it's your fellow workers, your boss, the people who work for you, or your customers. So you're comfortable with people, but you actually have an affinity and a passion for food and service. I think age is almost irrelevant because it's those attitudes that are so important. And if you're 21, 22, 23, and you've got the right attitudes and the right passion, and you have a degree of intelligence, you can get on. So I've never been a believer that you've got to be 40, 45, 50 before you can become a major player. I mean, I was fortunate to be a district manager when I was 23, and I had 1,400 catering staff at Ford Motor Company. When I think back, it's frightening. One, I learned an awful lot of people from the more experienced people around me. But two, I worked for a company that was prepared to give me the chance. When I made a lot of mistakes, I learned by my mistakes. But if you're bright enough and have the passion, you will take on board those lessons and progress. And that is why I've always been a believer that if you've got the right attitude in this sector, you can progress, and age should not be a barrier.
There's almost a thinking that's almost has gone away, but we want to try and encourage to get back in. How do we enable the young?
Maybe under current circumstances, we won't have the option that we do need these young people. They are bright. There's a lot of them around, and if we can engage them and get them on board, I think they will force their way through and force their way up organizations. And I think genuinely we are going to be in a new world, and these bright young people will find their way. And there have been so many changes in the last year, whether it's the use of social media, electronic media, the way information is spread around, etc., etc. These young people understand that, and I think we will see the younger people coming to the fore and driving through.
But the key thing here is actually, and that's the test for all of us, isn't it, is how we build trust with those young people.
Well, we're back to that first issue again, and you build trust by people getting into schools, and with that sort of face-to-face contact. You can do so much online, but there is nothing more important than face-to-face and getting in. I remember my own experience in university, in I think my first or second year at university. A general manager from Grosvenor House came along, a gentleman called Peter Merriweather at the time, and gave us a talk on how Grosvenor House worked, and this was, in the 60s. And it was actually quite inspirational. And, when you're a young person, that face-to-face contact, that person giving you his experiences of how it works, what it's like, what the career opportunities are, it does inspire you at that age. And that's why we need people, every hotel manager, every restaurant manager, all the people in management in the sector, get out there into your local school and college and spread the message.
Perfect. Well, Bob, can I thank you for today? It's been great.
Well, thank you, Chris, and I hope, I really do believe this is a one only opportunity for the industry itself to do something for, not just for now, but for the long term. And it's something that perhaps we should have tackled more aggressively long ago.
Look, I agree on that. I do. So let's see what we can do. Thank you for that, Bob.
Good to speak to you as always, Chris.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.